So you've seen in the last week at least the the string of protests across American campuses, university campuses specifically.
Yes, and it's kind of surprising because I don't remember America ever cracking down this hard on student protesters.
Protests altogether, let alone student protests.
What about like the what was it, ninth
January
February,
6th.
January 6th
No,
protest?
we'll get to that in a second. If you see the sort of, this was an inevitable. It's an anti-war sentiment. It's an anti-imperialist sentiment. It's anti-Israel. There's a lot of noticing going on. And it is at an all-time high, so it was inevitable that the student organizations would jump in. Obviously, a majority of these campuses are left-leaning, or at least they're anti-war to some principle level. Even though you would have expected this would have happened on the scale that it has with regards to Ukraine as well. But I think there's a history of America's relationship with Israel, and it's particularly egregious. Um, in
Yeah,
the,
you didn't
yeah.
get like the kind of footage you're getting out of Palestine. You didn't get that with the Ukraine
No,
war.
it was this more a conventional war.
Yeah.
It's more a conventional war with these two sort of organized militaries that are fighting for certain land objectives, and this is more of a sequestered people, in like a big prison scenario, and then they can pick off whatever and whoever whenever the Israeli government wants, targeted strikes, and it seemed quite clear from the get go that they want to have maximum number of casualties and sort of spook the people out and leaving the Gaza for the Rafah crossing and entering Egypt, or basically they want to make refugees out of these people and they want to take over. And it's something beyond the sort of the geopolitical angling of Ukraine entering NATO. It seems genuinely one-sided and unfair, and I think it's spurred people on, but it's the response in the sort of American cultural zeitgeist and the political commentators, whether they be on mainstream media or social media, is weird to me, because there's nothing un-American about the desire to not participate in an international war that you had nothing to do with,
Right.
to finance genocide, or to finance or to subsidize essentially the Israel's even very existence in the region, because it's not geopolitically viable the way it's operating right now. And I don't think long term it's going to be a reality. I think it's going to be gone. Israel as a state altogether. This is inevitable.
You think so?
Yeah, 100%, dude. They have no ethnic ties to the region. They have no cultural ties to the region. It's all imagined. It's all a big fantasy. Their economic cooperation at best is because the American industrial machine is at their back. Israel doesn't really have much to offer to the Middle East in terms of economics or commerce that the Arabs themselves wouldn't, or the North Africans wouldn't be able to pull off. There's nothing particularly unique, and there's always the cultural religious sentiment of we have to get them out of here. So they're surrounded by people who don't want them there. So it's inevitable that they're going to be done with it. And I think if the Americans hadn't picked them up as a pet project after World War II, I think it was Truman, they wouldn't have survived this long. But that's neither here nor there in terms of the situation right now, because right now what's surprising is the way American lawmakers have cracked down on the student protesters. Particularly if you look at the case of the University of Texas, I think the governor is Greg Abbott, and he was particularly egregious with his. Was pretty ham-fisted. Like he sent like state troopers. They were on horseback, they're wrangling the children, beating them up, beating up journalists, arresting students on campus, off campus. Um,
Why do you think they've cracked down so hard on the protesters?
I mean, Netanyahu gave a statement. Did you see it?
No.
Netanyahu gave a statement like, "Well, you know what is going on in the American campuses," in his weird like Israeli American accent. Is completely egregious, and it reminds us of what happened in university campuses in Berlin. And it's become so tiresome, the constant Holocaust reminder, the constant oh, this is what happened in Germany, college camp. These are soft leftist sort of kids.
Yeah, who will be first in line to, condemn the Holocaust or
or whatever it is that you want, whatever religious thing that you want them to do.
yeah.
Go pray at the Holocaust Museum or whatever. Whatever psychopath, psychic control shit that you want to do, they'll do it. And these people are like constantly. I think the number one sort of accusation they have against anyone who is an opponent is that they're a Nazi. So it's all like it's like it's a weird.
Yeah. Where's Antifa in this?
I
entire
would
thing?
say Antifa is probably. I wouldn't say Antifa is an organization, but people who would sort of associate or overlap with the Antifa Venn diagram would be in the protests.
Most likely.
But I think Antifa wouldn't give it their sort of stamp of approval because Antifa pretty much just works for the,
Government.
the government. It's quite clear. A lot of these Proud Boys, Antifa, BLM types, it's quite clear that these sort of agitation things, movements are very easily hijacked and agent provocateurs get in and. I think the first sort of more modern, egregious, sort of very obvious example was the Occupy Wall Street movement,
Right.
and that being hijacked by agent provocateurs, people dressed up as civilians, and then breaking shit, beating people up, fighting the cops, and then sort of creating a riot situation. I think it's a classic tactic. I mean, you're never gonna go wrong with it. It's always gonna be a case of he said, she said. The reporting is always muddled. There's no cameras available. Who shot first? Was it the police? Nobody knows. But I think what's particularly funny to me is the free speech angle. Like, and America's had a bad track record in the past 20 years. I think their entry into the Gulf, into this region in general, has just been a nightmare for domestic civil liberties and freedoms. With the Snowdens of the world and then the Assanges, and constantly clamping down on any kind of freedom, privacy, free speech, free thought. Killing journalists here and there. I mean, their Prius sort of goes into full gear, fifth gear, and then crashes into a tree. Like these kinds of weird missing people, and I think they're done with that whole
Free speech thing.
that whole story, because the sort of controlled opposition that they created with the free speech guys, the intellectual dark web and Jordan Peterson, and they're all Jews. Like these weird. Like how can you be a real American, like patriot, and you can be a Zionist? That's
Yeah.
nuts.
It makes no sense.
It makes like zero sense to me.
Right.
Like Israel regularly like fucks around with America, regularly like screws them over when it comes to the Chinese, comes to trade deals, spying. It also seems like the big case with the United Fruit Company, which was a front company that some American Zionists were running for Israeli intelligence, and that's how. It's a very long story. I mean, if you want to watch the full documentary, it's a really good documentary by Ryan Dawson. It's on his Twitter.
And then eventually they shifted to cage fighting because it's the UFC, right?
Yeah. Anyways, so the the United Fruit Company was a
The UFC.
the UFC was a company which they used to smuggle nuclear secrets, and that seems to be the case of how Israel made the bomb, because they clearly have at least 60, 70 warheads. Ryan Dawson would fully recommend the documentary. It's pretty long. It has the autistic sort of articulation of every single person who was connected to every other. He makes the full
Right.
spider web of. It's a pretty schizo, big brain type analysis, but it's very accurate. And if you look at Whitney Webb's book, One Nation Under Blackmail, you'll find the Zionist Israeli connection with the sex blackmail, all the sexual contraband, the kiddie porn, and the weird and their connections with the FBI and the CIA. What's quite clear is that the American people are a separate entity, and then there's the American sort of state apparatus and infrastructure,
Right.
and then there's power groups that fight to use the whole infrastructure, the superstructure, however which way they can. And there's a group that's vying for Trump, and then there's a group that's vying for Biden and Hillary, and there's a group that's pushing the war in Ukraine. There's a group that's ultra crazy Christian Zionists who believe that the Messiah will come back if the Jews, massacre all those poor Palestinian people. It's a big. So this I think the conventional way of looking at the nation state and your relationship with those power
Right.
corridors. It's just the whole paradigm is. I don't think America is going to be the same anymore. Like the past 20 years have been a good precursor to what's to come.
Right. I mean, already, things have shifted so much. Like you said, in the past 10, 20 years, the way they've sort of clamped down on free speech, the way a lot of Americans willingly gave up their rights, like with the Patriot Act, for example.
Yeah,
Uh, you know,
9/11 was pretty spooky for people.
yeah, the entire gun issue keeps, it looks like with time they
Dude,
might,
that's insane, right? As someone in the third world, as
yeah,
someone in a control state, right?
yeah,
The number one thing about America, what's the thing that really makes you go pop off? It's the guns.
right,
It's the one of the most amazing things that they have.
yeah,
The fact you remember that channel, the American guy who used to act like a Russian, the one who
yeah,
went to
yeah,
jail
yeah.
eventually
I remember.
for like tax evasion or something. I don't know, remember.
He used to like fire guns and
FPS Russia,
yeah, yeah,
dude, that was insane to me that you could be. It's the land and the guns. Like, have you seen Whistling Diesel?
no,
Great YouTube channel. This guy's amazing. He's somewhere in the south. Has a ranch. He just modifies cars to be nuts. Like he put like differentials and 4x4 gear on a school bus,
no,
and then he'll wreck the thing. He'll buy a G wagon and then just take it in the muck until he wrecks it. He'll buy an old Hilux and then throw it off a roof. He is the new what was it? What was that show? The British show, Gearheads,
Top Gear.
Top Gear. If there's anyone watching who is white or just an American or whatever, the land and the guns. It's unbelievable.
That's your two.
Dude, American land and their guns.
Yeah,
That is the shit. That is literally, that's the best life you can have.
yeah,
Like when I see the small towns in America, like they have the farmland, they have the cattle, they have the old diesel trucks, they have the guns.
yeah. What more can you ask for?
What more can you want from life?
Yeah.
I don't get it. I genuinely don't get it. Like I get the city sort of New York types, the New York elites and liberals being like, guns are bad and they kill me. But the rest of you should, fight for your guns and fight for your land.
Yeah.
None of these things are a consequence of America being a secular nation, by the way.
Right.
None of these things are a consequence of that. So if you don't want that, you want to be Christian or whatever, be whatever. Just keep the guns and the land. It's a very complicated game being played. So the left type, cultural Marxist weirdos are promoting anti-war sentiments for Israel, and the conservatives are like, no, we're anti-war for Ukraine, and they're silent on Israel. You need to. I think the American society needs to organize not on the lines of left or right. It needs to meet somewhere, at the loop, where at the far left and the far right, where it loops back to the same sort of issues, and they need to agree on certain freedoms and principles and sort of fight their establishment.
Yeah, well, I think you see this, and America is probably the most sophisticated example of how governments now are deploying like this divide and conquer sort of rule, right? Where you get like these petty social issues and the media machine pushes them hard. You push them hard.
And the new media machine, like the Ben Shapiro. So Ben Shapiro and the Daily Wire gang,
Yeah,
the ruse is that they're free speech guys, right?
right.
But the actual truth is that it's just Israeli propaganda, and for 90% of the time, their job is to talk about free speech. Because that one moment when the 10% time comes up, they're supposed to defend Israel. They're supposed to develop enough of a base in the society with whatever freedom of speech, dark web, intellectual dark web, gobbledygook. I think this whole aristocratic, penetrate the elite, penetrate the scientific community, I think it's done. They just need the internet now. They just need Ben Shapiro to come out and give whatever talking points, or who's the big guy on the left.
I feel like leftists just watch, like the
MSNBC.
Corbin Report. No, not the Corbin Report. What's it called? The late night show or whatever.
The late night shows, yeah. they have the population by the balls.
Mm.
This is the simple truth of it.
Yeah.
They have the population by the balls, and they don't even know it yet. Anybody who says, a lot of these weird streamer types, and like anybody who says porn is okay, and be on the internet like 12 of your waking hours a day, and all of these weirdos are either psyops or they're influenced by themselves by this.
I think, like with these American protests, what has become increasingly evident is that the American establishment is perfectly fine with the populace, debating or fighting or protesting
But
over like racial
gender, yeah.
things. They're okay with them protesting over, like whether people should have, transgenders can use women's bathrooms or should there be a third bathroom. They're perfectly fine with all of that.
Yeah.
The issue comes when you either attack like the
Financial
financial system
policy or foreign policy, yeah.
or the foreign policy. That's
Yeah.
when they have like a serious problem and they'll like clamp down hard on you. And I think this also goes to prove that the American establishment was not ready for like the blowback from this war. I think they were caught with their pants down when
That
Hamas attacked.
100%, dude, that Hamas attack sent everyone reeling.
Yeah,
It sent everyone reeling. Nobody had no Saudi, Israel, the Americans, they don't know what's going on.
right. And
And
it also goes to show how just out of control the Israel establishment has become.
with the reaction,
Yeah,
I think the Biden admin was shocked by the sort of the FU that they gave them. The Biden tried to rein him in, and he didn't. He bit the hand that fed them. He screwed over the Americans, and all the blowback goes to the Americans
right.
and the Biden administration. Israel is just like that. It's like saying is water wet? Yeah, Israel is bad, but then who's the main financier and sort of the backer, and everybody's all the international flack is on America. And I think the Ukraine war was also well leveraged by Russia and the rest of the world but it's not as egregious as this Israel thing, because this thing has 2 billion people attached to it.
Right.
It's automatically just from the get go. 2 billion Muslims don't like you now. Now, they might not stop trade now. They might not cut off ties now. But this thing is going to brew 20 years, 10 years, 50 years into the future, and somebody somewhere is always going to have an excuse to hate the American state, the establishment,
Right.
and it's good. It creates pressure on the local sort of hegemons and dictators and monarchs that America has propped up and the Europe has propped up in the Middle East and South Asia and Central Asia.
Yeah.
It creates pressure on them as well because their whole legitimacy gets questioned because like the divine right of kings type. The kings, the sovereign by the divine rule.
Yeah.
So like these guys are sovereign by American. So if the population suddenly becomes agnostic to the divine source that is America, all of a sudden
You've got a problem on your hands.
all of a sudden you're like maybe the Saudis shouldn't be the kings of Arabia.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe the army shouldn't run Egypt, which is a country of I don't know how many million people. It's a huge population,
Right.
right at the heart of the North African, Middle Eastern trade hubs, right? Suez Canal and all that. I think the Americans during this strategic retreat that they've been doing from Eastern Europe and Central and South Asia with Afghanistan, leaving Afghanistan. I think their last sort of physical holdout, if you look at the zones, it's like India, Pakistan, Ukraine, Poland, Belarus, and then they have Saudi, Israel, the UAE, Bahrain, Qatar. These are sort of major choke points where they're still there, and then obviously the little tiny island nations in the South China Sea and in the area like the Philippines and South Korea and Thailand, and Japan, obviously.
Right.
I just think we're in a very heavy transitional period, and the American people are not ready for the kind of for the kind of sort of crackdown that they're going to have on their own individual personal. I saw a lot of the more reasonable, you know, social commentators, whatever you want to call them, influencers. They were like, "It's not our thing. I don't care." I think that was a more appropriate response from an average person as opposed to the gung ho nature of the right with, like, we have to support Israel because it's the only free state, the only democracy in the Middle East, and I love Israel because they pay me $1 quadrillion per year.
Well, I think even on the right, you know, people should be, or regardless of whatever position you hold, you should be skeptical of why your country is investing billions of dollars in this state, millions of centimeters away from you.
Thousands of kilometers.
Yeah, no, millions of centimeters away. It's probably more than a million
Probably,
centimeters, right?
probably billions.
But so far away from you, it has nothing to do with you. They get attacked once by Iran, and that's 1 billion of your tax dollars just
Just
evaporated.
just one goofy drone attack and $1 billion, like,
Just
overnight.
evaporated.
Yeah.
And and that goes for all the wars that they're doing. This one just happens to be like particularly egregious because of like
I
the
think I
genocidal
think the
nature.
calculus that the average person makes is that in their head, unless if they're not bogged down by their own social financial constraints. If there's somebody, we're talking about an individual who has the time to think about his life, where America is going, and this is somebody who has a house, is well fed, whatever. It's not somebody who's homeless, obviously, or in a, under debt or whatever. I think the calculus they make is that, on the one hand, you have oil prices and the value of the dollar that I'm going to pay for Israel, and on the other hand, I can get cancelled. I can lose my job if I speak up, if I say something, even if I just don't give a shit. Even if when someone's shoving the anti-Semitism
Yeah.
card in my face, the worst thing that you can think of is that I don't think it's safe for the Americans to criticize Israel on an individual level. Like, you just think about it. You're a doctor, you're an engineer, you're working. Let's say you're working a cash job, and you're mouthy on your Twitter or your Instagram or whatever. They're gonna find you.
Yeah.
They're gonna dox you. They're gonna get you fired. They're gonna make you lose your job. And this is happening not to just regular people. It's happening to mainstream, well-paid people who are part of the state, sort of the machinery of the state. They get screwed over on this Israel stuff. You can't. You at best you can flip flop. You can be wishy-washy about your ideas about Israel, and you don't have to be a gung-ho supporter. But if you have any valid, well-structured thoughts about criticizing Israel and you express them, and even if you're some junk person in working in a menial job at Walmart or something, they're going to find you and they're going to get you fired.
Yeah.
They get people fired overseas. So, like, I feel like it's, on the one hand, the prestige of the trick has sort of been exposed in that the Israelis and the propaganda machine has played its hand a bit too obviously. When people see the part of the noticing is, oh yeah, such and such did get banned from Twitter, and so did lose their job. Oh yeah, and Elon Musk did go there and wear like a Holocaust tag number on his neck like a dog, and they like paraded him in front of Israel because he didn't want to lose advertisers. You saw that, right?
I
When they
didn't
took him
see him wearing like the
Dude, they
dog
made
collar.
like a dog. They made him wear. It was the most. It was like a public humiliation ritual. They made him wear like the dog tags of some Holocaust victim or something, and to represent the 7th October attacks. And they made him visit all the sites, which is the Israeli Air Force bombed when rescuing their little towns, their kibbutzes. And he just sort of stood there somber, being like, "Yeah, it's a real massacre."
Yeah, Elon Musk also visited the Holocaust Museum a few
Yeah.
years back, and he had like this very public statement about how much it deeply affected him and whatnot. It's weird, man, with like this Israel stuff. Just every single person seems to lose their nerve.
Because they're scared. They're scared of listen. I,
Joe Rogan.
yeah, he always has to hint at this shit. He can't say it.
Joe Rogan recently came out and he had some, words to say about it. I think he's the only mainstream sort of, commentator who I've seen.
And mainstream by numbers, not through the medium. It's
Yeah.
not mainstream via the medium. It's just the massive numbers that he pulls.
Yeah.
Even he sort of, if you look at it, if you look at the discussions he had recently, and the most recent one that I saw was the one with Tucker Carlson. He sort of tiptoes around the financing of genocide, somewhere abroad.
Yeah. He
You
did
haven't-
have Abby Martin on once, if you remember, who had
No,
very,
the thing with Joe Rogan is I think he's much more well balanced in terms of, he has a couple of podcasts that he wants to do, and then he gets the CIA Mike Baker guy because the state tells him to, because the CIA obviously, and then he sort of balances it out. Even the Lex Friedman guy, who's clearly a psyop, they balance it out. They have Palestinian activists or whatever come on once in a while. I just think inevitably it's going to be. It's. I think Sam. I heard Sam Hyde, and he said it the best. He said it was genius what he said. He said, if you were some black guy in the cotton fields and you were a slave, and the massa suddenly just got a heart attack,
yeah.
right, and he died, I don't think the immediate reaction would be yippee. The immediate reaction would be, what are we going to do now?
Right.
So implicit in that sort of simile or analogy is the master slave relationship between the average Westerner and a sort of international Israeli Jewish elite. Getting banned off social media, getting unpersoned. Unpersoned is the most appropriate, I think. That just scares the shit out of most people, I think, in America, because they're much more geared into the e-money and everything's online, and they have no cash and they have a mortgage and they have to pay the bank. And I think the more sort of wild man, unfettered, and then and just geographically that is the case the moment you go to the third world. So you're more likely to, even though the state here has tried its best to crack down on, and in most of the Muslim world as well, just crack down on anti-Israel sentiments in sort of very careful sort of ways. But in America, I think it's unimaginable.
No, it's much harder to do here because just like the sheer numbers that hold the sentiment.
Sentiment, yeah, no, there it's plus I think their society is so entrenched in this sort of technological like pyramid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They get into the matrix or whatever. Like if you take the example of Canada, and after the trucker protest when they shut down their e-wallets and their bank accounts and whatever, there has not been a major protest on a national scale in Canada in the past 4 years. It's a telltale sign of a population that is scared.
Right.
And I think that the switch will be so subtle, as it has been in the last 20 years, that by the next 20 years, when they're up, if they give them some relief on the LGBT stuff, that might be the case to give them some sort of illusion of security. You can have white people in films now again or whatever. But the actual sort of freedoms to operate, to build as you wish, to live as you wish, to eat, roam around, live your life as you wish, own guns, whatever, that is going to go away. I think a lot of the things that made America America are going away very fast.
Right. Because a lot of the things that made America America are kind of disappearing.
Already a lot of them are gone, yeah.
Yeah. And that seems to be the case all over the world. Just like there's this trend towards like a more fascistic sort of controlling.
Is that I know I'm not a big technology guy, so I have no clue. I'm out of my depth. Is that just a technology thing? Is that just like a consequence of technology?
It might be. I think two things have happened simultaneously with the technological shift. One, the governments.
Have become infinitely more powerful, right?
One, the governments have become more powerful. They have more tools at their disposal to monitor you.
Less violent tools also. They don't necessarily have to kill you or arrest you anymore. They can just sort of unperson you.
Maybe, but like just the organizational ability of the state, let's just say, has grown tenfold over the past few years. Secondly, what has happened is that the masses have sort of become neutered because there's so much creature comforts available to you. You know,
Also biochemically, right? The food stuff, the microplastics, the
yeah, maybe
fluoride.
there's a biochemical sort of component to it as well. But in terms of like the Americans, for example, are heavily medicated now,
On
right?
the what the SSRIs, yeah.
The SSRIs, they've got all of these different drugs. But even if you don't have that, like if even if you look at like society like Pakistan, just the fact that everybody has a phone now,
Yeah.
they're browsing Instagram, they're watching Netflix, the way transport has changed, the way that even subtle things like just having a mattress to sleep on, man. I think like all these things, having air conditioning, having
Cold water, refrigeration.
all these things, they add up to a point where everybody's sort of, I don't know if they're happy, but people are sort of pacified.
They're definitely enslaved by these sort of the not just individual things, but I think the superstructure of the way the modern individual's life is organized.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
and what do you think that these students have no idea what can happen to them, or they're just done with it? I think it's also like a Gen Z thing where they're done with their lives. They're almost suicidal in a sense because these kids are definitely this is a big risk that they're taking.
I guess so. I think one with the students, number one, there is that aspect of, they don't have spouses or a family to worry about. They don't have a job that they can lose. Plus, there's safety in numbers, right? So if like all the students are protesting, like what's the university going to do? Are they
They're
going to?
working under the illusion of this is our movement and we're gonna change things. And also, I think they don't have the cognitive function to
Yeah, but also
grapple with what actually going on.
the way like the modern sort of structure is set up, the younger you are, the less entrenched in it you are, right? And as you sort of grow older, you get a job, you have a family,
Mortgage.
mortgage, you have like your social security or whatever, you've got your like your bank accounts and everything. So all these things, you have more to lose the older you get, I suppose.
Which was always true, perhaps, but now more so than ever, in terms of the magnitude of the material attachments that you.
Right.
Do you think it's over? I say sometimes I think it's genuinely over. Like this is it. This is the big transition into the I don't know the one world sort of fruitcake. Just WEF. These are the bugs. Eat
It
them.
might be. We had Khalid Abbasi who came on a Urdu podcast, and he said very succinctly in Urdu that, the new world order is here, and
No, there was
there was no
no,
hue, there was no cry.
there was not a single shot fired.
Yeah, nobody made any noise. It just happened silently
Yeah,
without anybody
I think
noticing.
99911 killed any sort of normalcy. That was the end of summer. That was
Well,
it. That was it.
there's flashpoints throughout history that you can sort of point to, like the Second World War being one. I think the Six Day Arab War had like, very far reaching consequences for the world that maybe we didn't realize, because
Yeah.
that is the start of like this sort
The
of
cementing of a demon state. Yeah.
yeah, the Wall Street superstructure also, just like the debt it's the shift of the financial system to from the gold standard to that fiat currency, and just the way that
And then its
America,
devolution into cryptocurrency.
yeah, which comes later
This
on.
is something that, by the way, the whites have not understood yet. And I don't know how we are able to understand it better. Just immediately we know that this thing is a problem.
The financial system.
Yeah, but the young sort of free thinking Westerners they tend to be like, no, the crypto is the way our way. Why do they think crypto is their way out?
I think there has been no great philosophy or thought in the West that I have seen that has actively attacked the interest sort of based financial structures that they have.
And it's a physical, tangible technology that's challenged that conventional financial system.
It is, but even that has like the same problems that,
Yeah, but that's what I. Why don't they? Why I've never heard any of these sort of pundits ever comment on the potential nature of this being a psyop. Like, what is this, Satoshi Nakamoto?
yeah,
Like, that's not a real person, obviously.
I think, yeah,
Nakatomi Plaza, Die Hard, wala, it
yeah.
keeps coming into my
Yeah,
head.
it's interesting because you're right, where they'll be very critical and like, cryptocurrency, the philosophy of cryptocurrency is very critical of like centralized banking. They'll be critical of like, in hindsight, they're critical of the 2008 financial crisis and how that was brought about by just like these mortgage backed
Securities, yeah.
securities that the banks were selling. None of them talk about cryptocurrency possibly being like some kind of psyop,
Another one of these scams.
another one of these scams.
Like, if Elon Musk touches something, I know it's a, excuse me, it's an American, whatever side of the elites that he represents.
Yeah.
It's one of those. It's that side scam when he did the Dogecoin stuff.
You know what's weird though is what I have noticed is that surprisingly, out of all the people who are extremely critical of these new technologies, it's the artists,
Yeah,
like the digital creators or like whatever artists basically. They were very critical of NFTs when they came out, and by extension, they were kind of critical about like the cryptocurrency thing also. And then recently, with like all this artificial intelligence sort of stuff that's going
trying to
on,
replace, like, graphic designers or whatever.
yeah, they're the ones. Well, they are the ones who are most affected by it, but
But
they're also,
aren't they just sort of resisting a technology as opposed to questioning the deeper esoteric sort of, the sort of the big brain sort of problems with cryptocurrency?
I think, like, in order to get into the weeds of it, you have to first be skeptical of the technology to begin with, right?
Right. See if you don't have a problem with it from the get go. Right. The one who's been the most critical of it is Tim Dillon, the comedian,
Right.
the fat comedian. Dude, they invited him to a Bitcoin conference with they had the Voss twins as well, the Facebook twins, who were clearly made in a laboratory.
Right.
That was he did a hilarious, like, a 30-minute bit as the host of just like how this is a cult,
Right. We
and
discussed this in the last podcast
the
also.
people were really mad. They were really
Yeah.
mad. No, but it has the cult. It has all the features. If it walks like it, if it talks like it, it's a cult. It has it all the. And then with a lot of these cults nowadays, you figure out that it goes all the way back to the government. Like if you look at the Manson cult and the whole Helter Skelter program that they had, there's a lot of serious evidence to show that these guys were part of the MK Ultra sort of programming, and they were trying to create a sort of cultural shift because the hippie movement had gone out of control, and they wanted to make this sort of a more paranoid society. There's a big conspiracy with it, and there's this one book. The guy was on Joe Rogan as well at one point. I don't remember what the guy's name is. Old guy, and he interviewed like Dr. Jolly West and a lot of these characters who were involved with the Manson murders and with the Manson cult. And it seems quite clear that these guys were some segment of the intelligence apparatus messing around with the social fabric on a scale that's unheard of. Like with actual biochemical substances, trying to fry people's brains. With the MK Ultra and all other hidden whatever the heck they have with the Havana syndrome, microwaving people's brains. It's just that isn't it? Then is that the technological advancements have definitely the people at the helm of affairs, the sort of permanent state bureaucrats. They're probably crazy with power. When you're able to if you have the technology that they have,
Right.
it's I think it's driven them to a point where their god complex is like off the rail, and they want to control every single minute aspect of the way people act and behave and consume. And
Yeah, I suppose that definitely has like a role to play, because like again, I don't know if we can even begin to comprehend, sort of that level of access or power that these people,
enjoy.
yeah, that they have access to. I don't know if they enjoy it
It's a
necessarily,
curse, yeah.
but they have it. And I think another thing is that, just like the average person has all these creature comforts now, the amount of sort of the access that these people can now have, right?
Right,
It's really,
via the creature comforts. Like all the fridges have cameras now. Have you seen the new smart fridges?
no, I haven't.
They have cameras. Why not? Why? Oh, you can face recognition, lock the whatever, and they have screens on them. You can watch TV on them.
Right.
No, but I know it's a random sort of mundane sort of example, but I know what you're trying to articulate, which is that these things are sort of inlets into your life, and if you're using them to look out at the world, someone's looking in. If you're seeing the world through your phone, then the world is looking at you through it. A lot of these things sound so cliched and sort of, you know what I mean, like schizo type. Big Brother is watching, and who the government is putting bugs in my head or whatever.
Right.
But it just seems to be the simple truth that the more of these things that you have, and the more organized your life is around these, the more your life is organized around these technologies, it's going to be impossible to escape the mind matrix that they create. Because like if you look at women, it's quite, and yeah, I think you have some choice takes on this, definitely. They definitely get the mind warp before us. Like whatever it is, the new cultural whatever this is it, guys. We're all gay now.
Yeah.
We're all transgender now. The women get it. The first people who get it are the women and the kids, women and children.
True. I think, again, with women and children, they are more prone to sort of,
An innocent sort of
maybe it is innocence, I don't know, but it also has to do with the fact that they have like more of a desire to
conform.
be socially accepted and form like these large social sort of communities.
Is the herd stuff.
That's more important for them. With a lot of men, obviously men also want to be part of like these social hierarchies, but I think you'll find a lot of men are just like more comfortable with
They're comfortable with themselves. The men will it'll be more likely that men will be able to reject the comfort of the normal sort of this is my life and this is they'll be able to sort of rough it out on their own,
yeah.
and then they can form their own in groups.
Yeah.
Given the common interests that they might develop as peers. But I think the women and the children, they wanna watch the new pop culture thing, and they wanna watch the new whatever television goop, whatever sludge that Hollywood has shit out of its sewer.
Yeah.
You know, I think the internet has done one good thing for these kinds of people, for the men who sort of wanna stand out on their own and maybe question what's going on with them, is that they're able to organize themselves amongst each other.
Yeah, true enough. Like,
And I don't think it's been a while. I haven't watched anything after the 90s. I only like all the movies that I watch are pre 90s, pre 80s, right? So none of the main, and all of it's illegal. Pakistan pirated online. None of the mainstream. I think the messaging, the programming sort of nodes, we're not hooked into any of them anymore. Like a majority of them, you're not on Netflix or Amazon Go or Hulu Plus or HBO Max or Disney, Extreme
yeah, we barely use social media.
or Nickelodeon off the top, whatever the it's nuts the things that they have. Um, I think those being connected to those nodes, being plugged in, is very important for this thing to work. And I think that this is allowed. I think millions of men, not even it's not even a few 100,000 anymore. Millions of men all over the world are able to plug out of this thing, and they can be like, yeah, I have a well, I'm on Twitch or I'm on Kick or I'm
Well, look,
on
they
whatever.
might be able to plug out. There's like layers to it, right? There's
Sure,
like the enjoy your soy slop kind of thing.
Goy slop.
You know,
Yeah,
have fun on Reddit, watch the new Marvel movie or whatever.
yeah. Watch porn.
Then the other layer of it is
Pay porn stars. You give them gifts. Yeah.
yes, all of that stuff. The other layer of it is that oh, you gotta break free from the
The
matrix,
real the real war.
the sigmas
Yeah.
basically, and it's like you gotta get financially independent and all that stuff.
There's a grift. There's a grift layer as well. Like I would put the Daily Wire in there. The right wing sort of fake right wing.
Right. So like that layer also is like it's still deeply entrenched in the system, but it's selling itself as being outside it. Yeah, this is the problem with like Andrew Tate type characters
Yeah.
where okay, like the initial identification of the problem is
Sure.
perfect.
Everybody's gay.
Very good.
We don't have any money.
Yeah. But then like the solution that's offered is that,
Be gayer. Have so that you can get more money.
it's like the same thing. It's the same issue, or like you're chasing the same thing that caused the issue in the first place, which is like you just deeply entrench yourself into that financial system,
But just game it better.
but just game it better.
I think but the incrementalism does allow for people to use the momentum of that outer circle to get out of the system. Like homesteading and just localizing yourself in a community and working for the community and going to the church, going to the masjid, whatever it is for you. Being a man, go to the gym. I think it's still it's the knockoff version of the drug that you need. It's the off-brand sort of, but it's almost there.
Yeah, maybe it's like
Or at least it acts as a conduit for somebody. If somebody's right at the center, the nucleus, like they're at they're at the Travis whatever concert. What's the guy
the
called?
Travis Scott.
Yeah, they're at the concert getting sweat on by some dude and getting trampled. Right? If someone's right there at the center, the journey to that from that to the actual outside is long. But somewhere along the way, you're gonna need the help of those.
Of the Tate brothers.
No, but the sort of the criticism would be that some people get stuck along the way with these kinds of characters, and these guys run smoke screens for the actual.
True, because like they are trying to sell something at the end of the day, right?
But no, it's neither here nor there kind of, like some people will benefit, some people will get stuck.
Yeah. Look,
But if you get stuck, weren't you always going to get stuck if you're that guy? If you're dumb enough to get stuck in the pyramid scheme, whatever,
yeah, maybe
sales
you could
training.
make that argument, but again, the thing is that like the great philosopher that breaks us free from like the matrix. Can he or will he be like some guy who's also selling you the course of how to make
How to game the matrix? Yeah.
how to do drop shipping or whatever?
Yeah, dropship,
It just doesn't seem
e-commerce.
likely to me that like the next sort of
No, I'm not saying that that's it, but for a lot of people, don't you think it set them on their journey? It might have.
let's look at like practical examples of like for example there's Haiti, right? Recently Haiti had like this big revolution where literally a bunch of gangs got together
Yeah,
and they
they were
overthrew
like,
the government.
we the law now.
Yeah.
We are kings.
And depending on who you believe, either like those gangs are just like cannibalistic monsters, and that's what like the mainstream media
Yeah.
is
Yeah. Trying to
reporting.
push.
So I immediately mistrusted.
Yeah.
But like our friend Dan Cohen,
he did.
went out and he did shot like an entire documentary with them. The guy who sort of spearheaded this movement, barbecue as he's called, he was a police officer initially, and he was a decorated police officer, And then they tried to sort of frame the police department for some massacre that had happened. And interestingly, all of this was in the ambit of this NGO, American funded, that was working
A
there.
human rights organization?
Yeah, who
Oh,
wanted
who would have
to,
thunk?
they wanted like some kind of funding. So, essentially, what they asked for was like for the police to apologize for what they had done,
Right.
and they were
And
like,
he said he won't.
yeah, he said that I'm not gonna apologize. I didn't do this thing. And they're like, well, you're gonna go to jail if you don't do it. And, he resigned and then he started sort of this because all of these people were armed, right? That's again the deciding factor that all of the gangs over there were armed to the teeth.
Violence? Yeah.
So they were able to resist like these government forces and eventually put enough pressure. They came together to the point that they were able. And by the
No.
way, during this time, one of the old prime minister was assassinated,
Yeah.
right? And these guys were of the opinion that it was an American-backed assassination, and they revolted because of that. And now,
No, but doesn't it make you think that the Americans need to understand how important their weapons and land are? Like, if you look at a place like Haiti,
they do, but like the point I was sort of
Sorry.
making was that this barbecue character, he wasn't trying to sell anybody a course.
yeah,
You know,
he just sort of did it.
he started working in his immediate community.
That's the thing, the localized thing. That might. Hmm. Maybe a lot of the course guys eventually will get to that, unless they move to Dubai, which is a lot of what they're selling. Right, just buy a course, do drop shipping, and then move to Dubai, and so that you can hang out with Eastern European hookers for the rest of your life.
But that's the thing, that if somebody is going to break you out of the system, it has to be like some kind of political thought,
It's
or
somebody's like a high moral standing,
somebody of a high moral standing who
takes action. Yeah.
takes action, and he starts from the ground up.
At a local scale, he has some local power vested in the area, and then
Yeah, because like somebody like Tate, like, okay, he'll have like five fans in Pakistan, he'll have 10 in India. It was like this really disparate sort of group. Then again, like the sort of level that he has achieved.
But I don't think he ever set himself out to be the arbiter of any great social political change. It was just
No,
like,
he was out there to make money, basically.
yeah.
That was the idea.
and I think his fan base sort of understands, these kinds of fan bases sort of understand that the idea here is that we make money, you make money. It's a weird kind of give and take pyramid scheme type situation.
Right, but the great change that
Might be needed.
has to come, it can only come through sort of a very moral, like self-reflection. It can't be about bettering your material sort of.
Which is important, that you be physically healthy and fit and you have money enough to take care of your own and your people and whatever.
Yeah, but like the principle has to come before that.
Yeah, those are just the means to. You know what it is? The great sort of what's happening on the American college campuses. One would tend to think immediately, sort of the knee jerk reaction would be, "Wow, look at these kids," and it's not it. I'm glad that they're doing it. It's good pressure. It scared Netanyahu. It scared the government. That's great from a complete practical sort of strategic standpoint. Principally, this is not it. All of these kids will turn around and tell you that you need to be gay and I'm a fruitcake and you know that whatever nonsense that they're gonna. There is no gender and their brains are addled and they'll say like the free market is bad and we shouldn't have commerce and we should share and we should all live in communes or whatever and stop bathing because the planet is dying and don't eat beef because cows fart too much or whatever. There's a whole ethos that comes with it. So I can isolate them for that one thing that they're doing and I can appreciate them for it. It's brave vaguely what they're doing and I appreciate and support what they're doing for the cause. But holistically, wholesale, you and I or anyone responsible or honestly, uh, wanting any sort of moral change can't buy it wholesale. I don't see myself, standing shoulder to shoulder with these guys, and like it's such a performative element even to their desire. Like a lot of them couldn't point Palestine on the map. I know that's like an Israeli talking point, but I'm genuinely saying like a lot of it is just like performative sort of. This is the new thing. It's COVID now. Now it's black people. Now it's these brown people in the desert. And
Maybe, but I will disagree in that, it's a huge protest that has come out. Like, if you've seen the pictures.
yeah, I've seen.
So clearly they are moved by this.
I don't doubt it. I don't.
Thing.
It's a visceral sort of reaction that they're having.
They are, and, it's the right direction for them to be pointing the anger.
To think at least, yeah.
It's better than like the whole, pride stuff or like the third bathroom stuff. This is actual foreign policy issues that are destroying the society.
It's much more tangible than what they've been asking for before.
Yeah, this is an actual
Because
issue.
these same kids on the college campuses, if you remember, the Weinstein brothers, also Jewish. I don't know if they have Israeli passports. That and the whole spurring on of the Jordan Peterson characters and the intellectual dark web and all those frauds. It was similar, if not these very kids on college campuses harassing sort of right-wing leaning professors to change their public opinions. And so I'm not saying I just think that I just have I deeply fear the fact that this is more of the same. It's in the same vein. It's not a principled sort of, it's just like a vague sort of, I mean, it is principled, but it's their principles. And it's the same, it's more of the same of the perverted sort of, colonized and colonizer and brown versus white, and, as opposed to a genuine principled, are these people real American patriots? Are these people really morally driven? Will they convert to Islam anytime soon? These are the things that I'm concerned with. I'm also concerned about the Muslim community in America because these things, all of them will obviously be attached to these things, will latch on and help and organize.
I guess it might be a problem, but again, like I would say that, in like sort of the political landscape, you have to pick your battles.
No, listen,
And sometimes you have to, throw your weight behind.
don't get me wrong. This makes sense. These people are concerned enough to come out. Great, I support it. I support them. I think it's great. The American establishment might be pressured into backing off of Israel. It's quite clear that there's been an about turn in sort of the opinion making, the mega machine for Israel across the world. People have to sort of rescind from their original sort of support for Israel. But I'm just saying in a very localized sense,
Yeah.
for the American Muslim community, what does this mean? Because none of the narrative that they're putting forward is informed from a religious perspective. It's just the same old secular whatever, international law and human rights and
I think those are the cards that they can realistically.
but the thing you said about the local change, they need to show the balls to throw throw the trump card that they have. They should know that they have the religion that I believe it's going to solve all of these problems for human interaction. It's the great revolutionary change that people could get in their individual and collective lives, but they don't throw it. They're afraid. They have the material resources, but they don't create a narrative around the moral objectivity of Islam and how it would treat such a delicate situation. In terms of the collective humanity of not just the Palestinians but even the Jews in Israel.
Yeah. Well, there is sometimes you see like with like those Dawa bros.
Those guys are dum-dums though.
So that's the problem is where I feel like the Western mind sort of falls into like these weird traps of
It oscillates between we're going to vote for Hillary and mashallah brothers.
yeah,
Yeah.
Hyde Park, Dawa,
God. The Dawa scene, man, it's such a nightmare.
where
man.
it's like and like those.
They're all kuffar.
No, it's like those arguments of if you see a watch, it has a creator. The infinite recessions.
The ontological arguments for Islam, brother. I love those guys to death, but it's just a nightmare.
Yeah.
It is a real night. It's such a disservice to the religion when it's not a political, moral, social code, and it's like this weird debate match.
Yeah.
It's a. I think the champions for the religion, unfortunately, are like debate nerds, and the sort of the ambassadors are like expat Arabs and desis who want to be doctors and engineers who are like, yeah, it's totally messed up what's happening in Israel with Palestine.
Yeah.
We totally stand by it. I'm an ally to the LGBTQ community.
That's the failure of, I guess, the.
It's the duality of there's no normal
Who are the keepers of Islam right now?
in the West.
No, in the world.
That's a tough question, man. It's a tough question.
It's a tough question because, like, everywhere you see.
It's a nightmare.
Yeah.
It's a nightmare scenario. We have no citadel, central sort of. This is it. Look at the Ottomans, or look at the Mughals, or look at whatever. It's just Nancy Pansy, little movements and
Yeah.
random individuals and
Right. Most of it has been co opted by just like nation states pushing their own agendas.
yeah. Iran and Saudi with Wahhabism and Shiism.
Yeah. So,
It's very
and
unfortunate.
in general, like, if you look at religion, that
it's
seems
it's
to be.
a lot of people will get mad at this. I think it's an even lower point, and this is in our civilizational history than the physical colonialism. In terms of with physical colonialism, and I've thought about this a lot. With physical colonialism, you can fight physically. This is the British states apparatus. This is the DC. This is the AC. This is the DC and AC are district and assistant commissioner. These are posts created by the British Empire to regulate their affairs in India. This is the police commissioner. This is so and so. This is the viceroy. We have to kill them. We have to fight them. We're going to fight the British army. There's rebellion. There's all kinds of agitations. When you're not physically occupied,
Yeah.
like right now, when we're culturally and economically beat down into submission, we don't have to deal with them. We have to deal with our own state, and that creates just another layer of like you have your freedom, you have your cake, but you can't eat it. And it just debases Islam and the Muslims further to a point where not only are you ineffectual with your own affairs once you have your freedoms, but you're still subject to whatever the hell we want you to do because so and such runs your government. There was injury in colonialism, but this has insult added to the injury.
Right.
Like it's a constant reminder, like a shame reminder. Like you've been free for like 100 years or 70, 80, whatever. Do what you
Do
want.
what you want. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the physical occupation is gone. But like you said, that was like the great trick that they played, right? Where they left like the structural
Management system there.
in place.
They left the families.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they sort of, and maybe it's not even a great trick. Maybe that's just how.
It's a very might just be the regular colonial, like the regular imperial playbook.
Yeah.
When an empire does that, it might just be. I think the one sort of unique trick that they pulled was the Bretton Woods trick. Gold standard to fiat, leveraging their balance of trade, their deficit, their net importers, leveraging that against the world. The petrodollar, that was a real trick. That was unique. That was. I mean, maybe some economic historian can be like, no, this is the playbook. But for me, at least, it seems to me apparently that was the big, the new sort of headline trick.
Yeah.
That wasn't a regular imperial trick that they pull off regularly. That was something special.
It was.
Do you think it's gonna keep coasting? I think it's coming to its close. No.
It is. I think a lot of these things are what you call emergent, in that they come forth because of like the interplay of like many sophisticated sort of systems interacting with each other. So like Bretton Woods was only possible at the time it was possible. And I think it was a consequence, or it emerged as a consequence of like, the global economy
The Gulf oil,
the Gulf
Israel
oil,
being established.
these interest-based systems that were being put in place the world over. So, like similar to like the way, a computer operates, or even like the human body operates, where like all these, complicated systems sort of come together, and you have like these emergent properties, like, the video game you're playing, or just like, you,
Yeah.
life itself.
Yeah, no. Yeah, get what you're saying. That it was the time and the timing and the technological advancement was just right when
Right,
they
yeah, where all of these, like really complicated systems
factors came into play, and
came into play.
it's perfect.
And this like the world economy, the way it's operating today, it seems like a very emergent property where it's almost out of control of the actors that are, acting. Like, for example, like you would say, like the human, like the cells, the individual cells in your body don't necessarily
Yeah, and
dictate,
necessarily have an impact on
dictate how you're gonna live your life. Similarly, I think like human beings being individual nodes in the system can leverage it to some extent, but it is a
It's hard.
beast that's out of their control.
It's hard to maneuver the beast. It's hard to turn the ship around when you want it to.
Yeah,
It's a
and
slow sort of
it goes out of control, and it can have like unintended consequences, and you can't control like the direction
like
it's going
a
to go in.
7th October. It's an anomaly. So like they and then like so if you pull it back to the college campus thing, they're bombarding the students with all this liberal gobbledygook and this Marxist nonsense, and then it's about gender and it's about dividing society and it's about race, but then all of a sudden it comes you and bites you in the ass with Israel.
Yeah.
So that they introduce something into the zeitgeist. They introduce like a little mind virus, but they don't know how far reaching the consequences of the mind virus will be. And 50, 40, 30 years down the line, it's going to come back and it's going to get them. It turns into a big, like, cancerous tumor.
Yeah.
How are they going to excise it now? How are they going to just surgically what are they going to do? Arrest all these kids? They clearly are trying to beat and arrest them.
It's like again, like it's hard to remember like a protest movement in the modern era that has been.
There's a big brain schizo aspect to this as well, by the way,
Yeah.
which is that this is being spurred on and the violence will help fuel the fire because they need popular opinion making so that they can pull out of Israel.
Could be that would be like 3D chess. Again,
Well,
like who knows?
Well, they do that shit.
They do all kinds of things all
Like
the
when
time.
America tried to convince us to go to Yemen to fight for Saudi. Do you remember all the Go America Go? And then Nawaz Sharif put it to a vote in the thing in the parliament. People came out and they were like, "We don't want to fight for America anymore." And
Yeah.
a lot of that was gamed
It
by the
was
state.
engineered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That's
Nawaz
true.
Sharif said, "No, we cannot go to Yemen. Here is some black chane ki dal. Eat some lentils."
I don't know. I don't know if they.
It was a baller move when he gave Obama, the first black president, black chane.
It was.
I think it was some kind of like symbol, like one of those. You know what I mean?
I don't put it past Nawaz
I
Sharif.
would. He's a simple guy, dude. I'm just messing with you.
Yeah.
He's
But
a nice guy.
anyway, like going back to the point, I think
Protest movements haven't been.
I don't know, because I think you have to leave some room for just like human stupidity, and
Yeah, error, and it's not just everything's not just a plan.
everything can be planned out. And I think like for example, with the 2008 financial crisis, that was a big blow to like the debt refinancing
Yeah.
idea, that, or like the system that like the Americans were coasting on for quite some time. And they've tried to, since then beta test different solutions.
And maybe one of them was the crypto market.
Yeah, maybe one of them happened in 2020. Who knows?
Like which helped export a lot of IP.
But they're unable to, clearly, they've been unable to revive
The
that
same.
sort of system.
No.
And the world is changing. They can't like keep relying on that thing. So now they've been experimenting with other things, and as like that old system collapses, it falls apart. I don't think the Americans have like some solid, because like you
They
said,
don't have a,
Brenton Woods was like a once in a
yeah, this is one trick, yeah, pony.
lifetime kind of thing. You
No.
can't keep repeating that. So
I think it's a wait and see kind of thing for me where I'm just like, what will these students end up doing? Will they end up maintaining for months or weeks like some kind of sit-in? And the elections are in November, right? What does that mean for the Biden administration? What does that mean for the Democratic camp? Their vote is screwed all over the place. There's no one candidate. And with the right, they know Trump. But the big question mark with Trump is he going to get arrested? Do you think this is how they introduce like martial law in America for the first time? It'd be hilarious.
that'd be funny, but I don't think that's
They're
gonna
not that
happen.
dumb. They're not that dumb though.
I don't think America has reached that point yet.
They can game it to the point where they can still have like the one party system and still enjoy the powers of a military dictatorship,
Yeah.
but or an oligarchy or whatever you want to call them.
There's too much money in America for.
For that kind of uncertainty, right? To
Yeah.
have it, yeah. But it's definitely not going to be nice for the average individual American. I see a lot of freedom going down the drain. It's a damn shame, honestly. I would have liked to visit America and maybe drive across and fire some guns or whatever.
Yeah, we can still do that.
We might. Who knows?
They might kill us now.
They might kill us now.
But I don't know. I mean, like, this podcast, hardly anybody watches it.
Nobody will.
Except that one FBI agent that's assigned to us.
Yeah.
And I think he's a nice guy. Please don't kill us.
Don't kill us, Steve.
Yeah. So next time you see us, we're gonna be in America. Woo.
No.
But I think that's
I think it's a wait and see for me.
let's end on a quote.
Really, you have a quote?
Yes, I do.
Is it sweet?
It has
I
it will wrap everything up
and a nice wrap up.
nicely. It says,
Oh my.
either you run the day or the day runs you. By Jim Rohn.
What does that have to do with anything?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I meant nothing is impossible. The word itself says, I'm possible.
Oh, kill yourself, man. What the hell was that? I thought it was going to be like a Robert Frost, like the woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have miles to go before I sleep kind of thing. I actually like Robert Frost poems, by the way.
Success is not.
Oh my God. All right, boys. Allah Hafiz.